They said there was a plot. The Warren Commission said that Oswald did it by himself. There are two formal government records that say the exact opposite, but both of them were hacked because the people who were in charge of keeping information safe were CIA spies. Shots have been fired at Paron Hospital, which has been told to be ready for a serious gunshot wound. The story that the president was hit in the head is not true. Mrs. Kennedy, the president's wife, was not hurt. She went to the hospital from Dallas, Texas, with her husband by his side. The flash, which seemed to be legitimate, said that President Kennedy had died at noon, time in Central Europe. The real reason why JFK was killed has been one of the biggest secrets in American history for more than 60 years. Official reports only gave us one story of what happened, but gaps, contradictions, and unanswered questions have led to endless arguments and ideas about what really happened. Now new information has come to light that could completely change how we think about what happened. There are a lot of troubling details and big effects, and the truth may be even worse than anyone thought. What took place in Dallas that day, and why hasn't the whole story been told for so long? The puzzle pieces are finally coming together, but the answers make things worse instead of better. It's becoming clear that the truth isn't good. Stay tuned as we try to figure out who killed JFK. People all over the country are still very interested in the question of why John F. Kennedy was killed, even though more than 60 years have passed. Many people are still confused and don't believe what really happened in Dallas on that terrible day in 1963. It was a very sad day in the United States when President John F. Kennedy was killed. After 60 years, director Rob Reiner says he has finally solved one of the most controversial events in American history in a 10-part podcast series called Who Killed JFK, that he co-hosts with journalist Soledad O'Brien. Reiner says he will tell you the names of 4 people he thinks were involved in this horrible crime. This is more than just a job for Rob Reiner, it's very important to him. He remembers very well when the terrible news spread. In high school, he saw a friend lean in close and speak to the teacher. Soon after, Reiner and his friends were told to go home. He spent the next few days glued to the TV just like many other Americans. The live recording of Lee Harvey Oswald, the man accused of killing President Kennedy, being shot by Jack Ruby was almost too unbelievable to be true. That event stuck with him and made him want to find solutions for the rest of his life. To find the truth, he went to Dallas's Dealey Plaza, the spot where everything took place. He went to the scene of the crime many times over the years and talked to forensic experts, witnesses, and other people involved in the case. For years he worked on his show to get the most accurate picture yet of what really happened that day. The long-held lone gunman idea from the Warren Commission is directly called into question by his results. Instead, Reiner thinks there was a plan involving bad CIA agents, groups of Cuban exiles, and criminals. He says that these groups worked together to kill the president in a well-thought-out plan. Reiner and his team are able to see the case in a new way thanks to new records, improved video from Dealey Plaza, and more advanced investigative methods. There are comments in the report from doctors at Parkland Hospital who cared for Kennedy and talked about entry wounds that don't match shooting from the Texas School Book Depository. Other witness reports and records show that Oswald had ties to intelligence agents, which makes it even less clear what role he really played. According to Paul Landis, an 88-year-old former Secret Service agent who was only feet away from President Kennedy when he was shot, he remembers a shocking event. In his new book, he writes about this event. He says that he took a bullet from the presidential car after the shooting and put it on Kennedy's bed at the hospital. This may seem like a small thing at first in a case that has been looked into for more than 50 years. Landis's story, on the other hand, is a big surprise to people who have spent decades looking at all the proof. People have long argued about how many shooters there were who planned the attack and how many shots hit Kennedy. The longest-running conspiracy theory in the United States is based on the idea that the official story is not the whole story. Some historians even say that this event made people in the country start to doubt their government. Landis's claim could either back up what people think they know about the killing or change what they think they know. People are still very interested in finding the whole truth, and his book, The Final Witness, makes that desire even stronger. According to researcher and Kennedy expert James Robinault, this is really the most important news about the assassination since 1963. Robinault worked closely with Landis to get him ready to tell the public about his story. Landis, who was 28 years old at the time, was supposed to protect Jackie Kennedy on that terrible day. He was there when the president was shot in the head and died. After that, there was complete chaos. For decades, only a small group of close friends and family knew what he did next. The next day, when the motorcade got to the hospital, Landis told the New York Times that he saw a bullet resting in the back of the presidential car near where Kennedy had been sitting. He put it in his pocket after picking it up. He was in the emergency room with Kennedy a short time later. He put the body on the president's stretcher to make sure the bullet stayed with it. "That was a big bother for me," Landis told the Times. "There was nobody there to protect the scene. Everything was happening so fast and I was just afraid that it would get lost or disappear. It was a piece of evidence that I knew right away was very important." Landis filed reports in the days after the assassination, but he never officially recorded this act and the Warren Commission never talked to him about it. Robinault told the BBC that he had not slept at all, had to work, and was suffering from serious PTSD. The bullet slipped his mind. Having spent a lot of time interviewing Landis, Robin recently wrote a Vanity Fair article analyzing this new revelation. He said, "He was totally focused on the huge things going on around him. Landis kept his distance from the murder and the many conspiracy ideas that grew out of it for many years. But now, after years of keeping quiet, he has chosen to tell everyone his story. We will now take the lone shooter idea apart piece by piece and look at the evidence that has kept people guessing for decades." Lone gunman theory. The official report from the Warren Commission said that Lee Harvey Oswald shot 3 people from the Texas School Book Depository by himself. This idea, called the lone gunman theory, seems easy, but it has caused arguments that have gone on for decades. Let's look at the data that links Oswald to the crime to better understand this idea. The Texas School Book Depository, a building that was in the way of Kennedy's motorcade, hired Oswald. The commission said that he brought a gun to work that day and hid it in a long paper bag. He was seen bringing the bag by witnesses, and later police found a gun on the 6th floor of the building. This gun, a Mannlicher Carcano rifle, was linked to Oswald through fingerprints and records of when it was bought. That being said, the most interesting thing is how the shooting works. The Warren Commission said Oswald fired 3 times. The first one didn't hit anything, the second one hit both President Kennedy and Texas Governor John Connally, and the third one killed him. The second shot, which is sometimes called the magic bullet, is one of the most talked about parts of the case. It was said to have gone into Kennedy's upper back, come out of his throat, and then hit Connally, hurting his chest, wrist, and leg. A lot of doubters say that the path of this bullet goes against the rules of physics, so it's not likely that a single round could have hurt so many people. Now think about what this means for a moment. Was it really possible for one person to fire such an exact series of shots from several floors above street level? It was thought to be possible by the Warren Commission. They used controlled tests to show that trained shooters could copy the shots. However, some people say that Oswald wasn't a very good shot. According to his military records, he was only a fair shooter, which makes it hard to believe that he was able to fire so quickly and effectively in such dangerous situations. Why Oswald did what he did. Another important part of this theory is Oswald's reason for doing what he did, or the fact that he might not have had one at all. Before turning against the United States and going to work for the Soviet Union, Oswald was in the Marine Corps. He later came back to the U.S. Even though his actions show that he has strong views, the Warren Commission was unable to find a clear reason why he would want to kill President Kennedy. After being arrested, Oswald said he had nothing to do with the murder, but 2 days later, nightclub owner Jack Ruby shot and killed him while he was in police custody. Because he died so quickly, there would be no hearing, no more questions, and no way to fully understand what he really wanted. The idea behind the lone gunman theory is that Oswald did everything by himself, but there are still some questions that make it hard to come to this decision. For instance, how did Oswald avoid being caught right after the shots were fired? Even though witnesses saw him enter the building just before the parade went by, he managed to get away, taking a bus and then a cab. He then killed Dallas police officer J.J.D. Tippit. A man seems to be following a plan, but there isn't any strong evidence linking him to a bigger plot, so many people aren't sure. Think about what this idea has done to make people trust the government less. The Warren Commission tried to put an end to the investigation by saying that there was only one killer. However, this answer seems too easy for many people. How could a single person change the course of events so drastically? There are holes in the proof and details that don't match up, which has kept doubts alive and helped other ideas grow. Multiple shooters theory. Now let's look at an alternative answer that has interested millions: the idea that John F. Kennedy was killed by a coordinated plot involving several shooters. This view differs from the lone gunman idea in that it says Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't the only shooter and might not have been involved at all. Instead, it seems to say that the killing was done by powerful groups working together. A key piece of evidence often used to back this idea is the Zapruder film, which is a home recording of the murder happening live. People who have seen the video say it's very scary. The movie shows Kennedy being hit, but for many it also makes them question the official story, especially about the direction of the gunshots. According to the Warren Commission, all the shots came from behind the president's car at the Texas School Book Depository. But the fatal shot seems to have pushed Kennedy backward, which makes some people think the bullet came from the front, maybe from the grassy knoll, which is a small hill near Dealey Plaza. Reports from eyewitnesses also back up this idea. Many people at the scene said they heard gunshots coming from the direction of the grassy hill. Some people said they saw smoke or a person in that area. The cops checked the knoll right away after the shooting, but they couldn't find any proof of a second shooter. Still, one of the most consistent parts of the conspiracy theory is the idea that there was another shooter there. Let us take a moment to understand what this means. Some theories say that the CIA was behind the attack if there were more than one shooter. They say that Kennedy's handling of Cold War tensions and plans to pull back USS because he fought in Vietnam, he was a threat to some groups. Others think the mob had something to do with it because the Kennedy government went after organized crime very hard. It's also possible that people from both groups, as well as others with their own goal, worked together to kill the president. What proof is there to back up these claims? That's the next thing we need to look into. Cover-ups and conspiracies. The man who is known as Umbrella Man is an interesting part of the story. Several pictures and videos taken during the murder show a guy with an open umbrella even though it is clear and sunny outside. Some people think he was either signaling the shooter or maybe even using a weapon that looked like an umbrella. Even though this idea doesn't seem likely, it shows how thoroughly every part of this event has been looked into. The way the study was done is another strong reason to believe in a plot. Some people who were against the Warren Commission said that important witnesses were ignored or kept quiet, important proof wasn't kept safe, and other answers weren't given enough weight. For instance, some people who said at first that they heard gunshots from the grassy knoll later changed their minds, possibly because of pressure from outside sources. Because of these discrepancies, a lot of people think that proof was hidden on purpose. There is also a greater distrust of government institutions that goes along with the idea of a plot. The murder happened at the height of the Cold War, when many people were afraid of spying and threats from within their own country. People think that Kennedy's death wasn't caused by a lone shooter but was part of a bigger plan. This fits into a larger trend of doubting hidden forces and secret operations. The idea of a planned plot seems like a better way to explain such a huge event, whether the suspects are the CIA people in organized crime or another powerful group. But let's take a moment to think about what it would really take to carry out such a big plan. It would need to be carefully planned, involve many people, and be possible to control or destroy anyone who might tell the truth. Could there be such a cover-up? Yes, but is it really possible? Many people are still divided over that question. As we come to the end of this talk, think about what this idea really means. A lot of people don't just believe in conspiracies because of the facts. It's about the idea that the formal answer doesn't fully make sense. It's about the worries that won't go away even after decades have passed. The story is also about the scary idea that strong forces may have shaped history in ways that most people still don't fully understand. The third idea about who killed JFK is one of the most controversial. It includes the Central Intelligence Agency, which is one of the most powerful government agencies in the world. This idea says that Kennedy's death was planned by the CIA because of growing problems between the president and the agency. Let's look at Kennedy's time with the CIA to see why this idea has stuck around for so long. There was no doubt that he didn't trust the agency, especially after the failed Bay of Pigs attack in 1961. Kennedy looked very bad after his failed attempt to remove Fidel Castro from power. In public he took responsibility, but behind closed doors he said the CIA lied to him about how likely it was that the plan would work. After this failed attempt, Kennedy is said to have said, "I will break the CIA into 1,000 pieces and throw them all over the place." This kind of speech might have made him a direct threat to the agency's leaders. People who believe the CIA theory say that Kennedy's choices in foreign policy made the rift between him and the intelligence community even bigger. Some in the CIA thought it was betrayal of him to try to start hidden talks with Cuba in order to make things better between the two countries. A lot of extremists in the agency were set on getting rid of Castro no matter what. Another thing that caused trouble was Kennedy's plan to pull USS "Get Your Men Out of Vietnam." According to National Security Action Memorandum 263, this choice went against the CIA's chosen plan, which called for more American military involvement in Southeast Asia. For some people in the service, Kennedy's approach to foreign policy might have made him very hard to work with. Let's look at some of the evidence that is often used to back this idea. The claim that CIA agents were in Dallas on the day of the murder is one of the most important ones. Secret Plans and Open Questions. Howard Hunt, a former CIA officer who was later linked to the Watergate scandal, was said to have been in Dallas on the day of the murder. Even though he said he had nothing to do with Kennedy's death, some experts think his appearance makes it more likely that the CIA had something to do with it. That same day, another story says that George H.W. Bush was also in Dallas. Bush would later become president and had ties to the CIA at the time. Even though these claims haven't been proven, they make people think that the agency may have had something to do with what happened on November 22, 1963. A former CIA agent named Richard Case Nigel has another piece of proof. Nigel said that officials told him to kill Lee Harvey Oswald before he could kill President Kennedy. Nigel says that instead of completing the task, he did something on purpose and got caught in El Paso, Texas to get away from what was going on. His story hasn't been proven yet, but it does add another layer of mystery to the idea that the CIA is involved. Then there's James Jesus Angleton, who is the CIA security chief and is known for keeping intelligence activities very secret. Some experts have said that Angleton messed with their investigations into the death of John F. Kennedy. They said that he was very important in hiding any proof that the CIA was involved. The agency's refusal to give the Warren Commission important information about Oswald's actions before the murder is an example of this kind of suppression. Records show that Oswald went to Mexico City and is said to have gone to the offices of Cuba and the Soviet Union. Because the CIA didn't share these facts, many people have wondered if the agency was hiding a deeper link between Oswald and intelligence work. Let us take a step back and think about what this idea means if it's true. If the CIA had anything to do with killing Kennedy, it would be a shocking act of betrayal at the top level of government. Could an organization whose job it was to keep the country safe have turned against the president?
People who don't believe in the CIA idea say that it would have been impossible to hide such a big and complicated plot for so long. They say that by now someone would have come forward with proof that the agency had something to do with it. But people who believe this idea say that the CIA is great at keeping secrets. Since the agency has done so many secret operations that the public has never seen, it's possible that a small group of bad apples within it was behind them without the knowledge of higher-ups. Many CIA records about the murder are still secret even after decades. This makes people even more suspicious. The fact that the government won't share all papers just makes things more confusing. What is still a secret? Why hasn't everyone seen everything? Also, it's important to look at the culture that this idea is based on. In the 1960s, people were already losing faith in government organizations. This mistrust only grew over the next few years, especially after events like Watergate and reports of wrongdoing at the CIA. People are suspicious of secret power and government cover-ups in general, and the idea that the agency may have had something to do with Kennedy's death fits into this. There is still a lot of disagreement about the idea that the CIA was involved in the murder, and this idea makes people even less sure about what really happened.